Welcome back to my channel, where today we're going to look at Story 1. The day God forgot my name on July 16th, 1988. Father Andrzej Kawalak was celebrating Mass in the small Polish town of Słupka. It was just another ordinary Sunday for the churchgoers. That is, except for the fact that their beloved pastor would never again celebrate Mass or lay eyes on the sun. For when the service was over, Father Kawalak went into the confessional booth and heard a voice that changed everything. He'd always been a humble man, a simple priest who'd given his life to the Lord. He saw the sick and tried to heal them. He saw the lost and tried to guide them. Yet what he heard in that confessional would shake him to his core. The voice did not belong to any parishioner. It did not even sound human. It simply echoed around him like the voice of some disembodied spirit saying, "God no longer remembers who you are, but I do." And with that, the priest was excommunicated from the church for heresy. No one knows what exactly happened in that confessional, but those same 4 words haunted Father Kawalak for the rest of his life. From that day forward, things started to go wrong. His identity began to unravel. Documents erased his name. His photographs faded his face. And every person he'd ever known or spoken to swore they had no memory of him ever existing. It was as if God himself had pressed a delete button on his reality, leaving him to wander an empty world where no one remembered him. To this day, all records of Father Kawalak's existence have vanished, save for a single audio tape. And what he said on that tape might shock you. It was a confession, but not of the kind that absolved sins. It was a confession of a man unraveling before the grim reality of his fate, knowing that he was about to vanish from this world completely. He spoke so quietly you could barely hear him, as if afraid of being overheard. And what he said on that tape has become the stuff of legend among demonologists. Let me read you a passage. Lucifer does not destroy the body. He erases the soul until you forget you were ever human. You wake up and you think you've dreamt something strange, something terrifying, okay? But then you look in the mirror and you see your own face. You feel the warmth of the sun on your skin, and you convince yourself that what you heard was untrue. You trick yourself into thinking what you experienced was just a bad dream. But then it happens again and again until you forget you were ever human. Lucifer is clever. He plays on your hope, your faith, your love, until there is nothing left and you collapse from exhaustion. Then he devours you whole. And with that chilling prediction, Father Kawalak disappeared. Some say he was taken by demons. Others claim he took his own life, but none can say for sure what became of him. This story goes back to the early days of the channel. Back then, we didn't have the means to verify every story we shared, and this one was no exception. We did our best to track down sources, but many of the details were murky at best. Over time, the story morphed and grew, taking on a life of its own. Some people even claimed that the original source material contained more lurid details, but those details never materialized. So let me set the record straight. This story is almost entirely fiction, written by yours truly as an exercise in world building and creative writing. But that doesn't mean it's not scary. Think about how terrifying it would be if the story were true. If God really did turn his back on a good man because he was no longer worthy. Imagine the despair of a priest who gave his life to the church only to be abandoned by the very God he served. The idea that God could turn his back on someone he created is a terrifying thought indeed. And what's more, the idea that Satan would play on this man's last moments, taunting him with promises of oblivion, is a disturbing prospect. This story is meant to be a cautionary tale, a reminder that even in our darkest moments, we must hold on to hope. I don't know about you, but I find stories like these fascinating. I like to think that there's more to our existence than what meets the eye, that there's a spiritual realm just beyond our perception. And while I may not believe in God, I still believe in the power of stories and the importance of confronting our fears head on. Con. That's why I'm so glad that this story has found new life on TikTok. It's a story that scares me, but it's also a story that challenges me to be better, to be more than what I am now. I've always been fascinated by the paranormal, by the idea that there's something more to our existence than what we can see or feel. When I was younger, I used to spend hours watching horror movies and reading ghost stories. I loved the adrenaline rush that came with being scared, the feeling that I was confronting my fears head on. As I got older, I started to explore other ways to experience that same thrill. I started playing video games with horror themes, and I even tried visiting haunted places with my friends. But nothing quite compared to the feeling I got from watching a good horror movie. Then I discovered a new platform, and it was like a whole new world opened up to me. I found a community of people who shared my love for all things spooky, people who understood the appeal of a good scare. I started following creators who made videos about ghosts, demons, and other creepy things. I watched video after video, and the more I watched, the more I realized that I wasn't alone in my fascination with the paranormal. But I soon realized that there was a problem. Many of the videos I was watching were fake, meant to shock and sensationalize rather than inform or educate. I wanted to learn more about the paranormal, but I didn't want to waste my time on videos that were just trying to scare me for the sake of it. That's when I had an idea. Why not make my own videos? I had a lot to say about the paranormal, and I wanted to share my knowledge with others. I started researching different topics and putting together my thoughts. I wasn't sure if anyone would watch, but I didn't care. I just wanted to put my thoughts out there, and then something amazing happened. People started watching my videos. At first, it was just a trickle, but soon it turned into a flood. I couldn't believe that so many people were interested in what I had to say, but I was grateful for the opportunity to share my passion with others. But then something else happened. People started sharing my videos with their friends. And before I knew it, I had a whole community of fellow paranormal enthusiasts on my hands. We talked about ghosts and demons and other creepy things. We shared stories and experiences, and we learned from each other. And then one day, one of my videos went viral. It was a video about demonic possession, and it reached millions of views in a matter of days. I was shocked and surprised, but I was also excited. This was my chance to reach even more people and share my passion with them. Since then, I've continued to make videos about the paranormal. I've covered everything from ghosts to cryptids to UFOs, and I've learned so much along the way. I've met other creators who are just as passionate about the paranormal as I am, and I've connected with people from all over the world who share my interests. I still get that same thrill from making these videos that I got when I first started watching horror movies as a kid. The adrenaline rush of putting myself out there and not knowing how people will react. The satisfaction of learning something new and sharing it with others. And the joy of connecting with people who share my passions. So, if you're like me and you love all things spooky and paranormal, then I invite you to join me here. Let's explore the unknown together and discover what scares us the most. If you enjoyed this chilling tale, I invite you to stay tuned for more spine-tingling stories and unforgettable characters. Thank you for watching. Have a great day and see you soon. Bye. Okay, here's story 2. I got this story from an old manuscript written by someone named Benedict, who claims to be an investigative reporter or a journalist. This is his story. It goes like this. Deep beneath Jerusalem, in a private vault, there is a book wrapped in human skin. This book was sealed before the creation of the oldest Torah, the oldest Jewish holy text, and the book has no words. They say that only certain people can read it, but the moment they do, their eyes burn out and they weep blood while reciting prayers that no religion teaches. Apparently, one person survived the experience and managed to write down what he saw. A vision of heaven on fire, angels walking backward, and a boy with Lucifer's eyes holding a mirror to the sky. But what is this book, and why does Lucifer not want you to know about it? Well, apparently, the book was created for a single purpose, to restore memories that were erased during the war in heaven. But some memories are better left buried. Too, some truths are venom to the soul. This story really reminds me of another story I told you guys called The Forbidden Book. In that story, there was a book hidden away that contained all of the lost memories of humanity. Lucifer wanted to destroy this book because he didn't want people to remember their true origins. People would turn to the book and see the visions of the past, and it would remind them that they were created by God and had a divine spark inside of them that would make people rebel against Lucifer, which is why he wanted the book destroyed. This story is similar in many ways, except instead of trying to destroy the memories, they are preserved in a book that only certain people can access. Who are these certain people? Why do they get chosen? Well, according to the legends, it's completely random. Sometimes a book chooses its reader. The book will find a way to enter your life. You might stumble across it in an old bookstore. It might fall from a shelf in the library. Or maybe you've been chosen to flip through its pages without even realizing it. In the original manuscript, Benedict describes how he found this book. One day, he was researching in a monastery when he came across a secret passageway behind the bookshelf. He walked through the passage and entered a secret chamber where he found the book lying open on an altar. It was calling out to him, and he couldn't resist the urge to touch it. As soon as his fingers made contact with the leather cover, the room around him vanished. He was transported to another dimension where he was confronted by the book's guardian. The guardian warned him that he shouldn't have come there and tried to stop him from leaving. But once you start reading the book, you can't put it down. It's just too interesting. There's this overwhelming urge to keep reading, and you won't be able to stop until you reach the end. So Benedict fought off the guardian and escaped back to our reality, where he began writing down everything he had seen and experienced. He wrote about the celestial war between Michael and Lucifer, and how both sides battled across the earth. And then he wrote about how the fallen angel Lucifer was cast into the abyss and sentenced to eternal torment. Then he wrote about how God restored the earth and started again with a new creation. And finally, he wrote about the book itself. It contains the essence of Lucifer, the fragments of his soul that were scattered across the earth during the war. The book allows readers to glimpse into Lucifer's mind and see the world through his eyes. But this is where things get really interesting, because Lucifer doesn't want you to read the book. He doesn't want you to know what's inside. He wants you to remember it. You see, we naturally forget things over time. We repress our childhood memories and we bury the traumatic events that we don't want to remember. But Lucifer wants us to remember everything. He wants us to remember the good times, the bad times, the ugly times. He wants us to feel the pain of the past so that we can use that pain to fuel our growth. So, how does the book do this? How does it force us to remember things that we've forgotten? Okay, well, let's go back to the original manuscript. After Benedict finished writing down everything he remembered, he went back to the secret chamber and returned the book to the altar. He didn't want to tempt fate again, so he decided to leave the book there and never mention what he had seen to anyone. But the next day, he woke up and realized that he couldn't remember anything. He had forgotten everything he had learned from the book. So he went back to the monastery and searched for the book again. He found it in the same place, but this time it wasn't empty. The pages were filled with strange symbols and words that he didn't understand. As he continued reading, he began to feel a strange sensation in his chest, like a memory that was trying to surface. Suddenly, he remembered everything. He remembered the celestial war. He remembered Lucifer's betrayal. He remembered the pain and suffering that had been caused. And he felt all of those emotions like they were his own. It was at that moment that he understood the true purpose of the book. It wasn't just a record of the past. It was a tool for growth, forced him to confront his forgotten memories so that he could learn from them And this is the lesson that Lucifer wants us to learn. He wants us to face our past, to embrace our pain, and to use it as fuel to become stronger. Because when we try to escape our past, when we try to forget the things that have happened, we are only hurting ourselves. We are preventing ourselves from growing. So if you ever come across this book, if you ever feel the urge to read it, I want you to resist. Don't read the book. Don't bring those memories back, because once you do, there's no going back. Now, I should mention that this story is just a legend. It's just a story that has been passed down through generations. There is no evidence that this book actually exists. But that doesn't mean that the lesson isn't real. We all have a past. We all have memories that we would rather forget. But those memories are there for a reason. They have shaped us into the people that we are today. They have taught us valuable lessons. And if we are willing to learn those lessons, we can grow from our mistakes and become better people. So I encourage you to embrace your past, to learn from it, and to use it as fuel to become stronger. Don't let Lucifer win by making you forget who you are. Remember everything. Feel the pain, embrace the darkness, and use it to fuel your growth. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Welcome back, everyone. It's me, Kay, and today we have more terrifying true stories from our subscribers. In our first story, The Ritual of Ending, there is a whispered myth that every religion has one unspoken ritual, not to create, not to summon, but to end. Okay? A ritual that in theory could unmake the universe, but in practice would likely just kill you. For most of history, the details were lost. But in 2023, a rogue occultist named Adrian Wise gleaned a few fragmented accounts of this forbidden ceremony, which he believed was first performed by the Sumerians. He also drew from apocryphal gospels and encrypted Vatican files, detailing demonic rituals and heretical practices from the Black Pope. Adrian meticulously researched for years and even traveled to the deserts of northern Iraq in search of ancient texts mentioning the ritual. He discovered that according to obscure texts and legends, the ritual required no blood, no fire, no lock of hair or fingernail clippings. Only a recitation of every soul that ever lived, and then a denial of their existence. Once all those souls had been named and dismissed, Lucifer himself would appear to collect their essence. After gathering all this lore, Adrian began planning his own version of the ritual, which he planned to perform on a live stream. He called it the Act of Oblivion. His followers prepared for it with weeks of fasting, meditation, and purification. On the day of the ritual, Adrian entered an iron lung filled with holy water. He was surrounded by 7 men dressed as the 7 archangels. Each held up one of 7 tablets inscribed with the names of different groups of souls. Adrian was given a scroll containing the rest. As the ritual began, Adrian started reading the names off the scroll. He read for hours. The other 7 men joined in after him, each chanting at a higher volume than the last. They cycled through countless lists of names, some of which seemed to be random combinations of letters and syllables. Others sounded like real names. Some were almost comprehensible, like Azazel, Beelzebub, Nama, Asmodeus, Paimon. Then, suddenly, Adrian stopped. The other 6 archangels kept going, but Adrian remained silent. The live stream cut to black for a moment, and then returned to Adrian. He looked shaken, his eyes wide and darting around. He told the others to stop, and then turned to the camera. His face was pale and drawn. "What did I just do?" he asked in a whispery voice. "Can't I remember anything? I know I shouldn't have done that alone. Okay? I don't understand. Why did you make me do that? Can?" The live stream cut to black for a few seconds, and then Adrian reappeared, now sobbing uncontrollably. "I wanted to believe you," he choked out between gasps. "I wanted to help people. I thought you would show me how. But now what? Now I can't get them back. I've killed them all. Why are they all dead?" Again, the stream cut to black. But this time, viewers reported hearing sounds underneath the darkness, like whispers, screams, and sobs. Some said they heard their own names being called in a distorted, demonic voice. Some even claimed they heard their own voices echoing back at them from childhood. But most disturbingly, some viewers said they saw images flash across the screen, like quick glimpses of their own childhood bedrooms. The live stream ended abruptly after that. And although the footage was eventually taken down, one line from the transcript survived. Here's what Adrian said right before everything went black. "Oh my God. Lucifer isn't trying to destroy the world. He's trying to unmake it like it never was." When the police finally broke into the abandoned house where Adrian had performed his ritual, they found the 7 men kneeling in front of the iron lung, all 7 dead from starvation. But Adrian was gone. He left behind no forwarding address, no phone number, no trace. He disappeared along with the secret of the ritual of oblivion. In our next story, a very unholy relic. I was a young Mormon missionary in a small town. Kate, we didn't have any air conditioning in our building, so during the summer, things got pretty hot. One night, my companion and I were studying in the living room when we both agreed that we should probably go to bed early to try to stay cool. We had a single air conditioner in our bedroom, and we figured we'd get more sleep if we turned it off while we were studying. We got up to our usual shenanigans, playing video games and watching shows until about midnight, when we finally decided to call it quits. We turned off all the lights and climbed into bed. A few minutes later, I heard what sounded like a loud scream from the living room. Now, mind you, this place was old and creaky, so I assumed that maybe a floorboard had just made a weird noise. But my companion woke up too, and he was freaked out because he had just seen the shadow of a tall, skinny man standing over us in the doorway. We just kind of laughed it off, figuring it was our imaginations. But then we started getting regular nightly visits from what we started calling the tall, skinny man. Sometimes we'd hear chains dragging metal moans or footsteps pacing back and forth in the living room. Then one night we caught him on camera. We had a baby monitor in the room for safety purposes, since we were missionaries and often had expensive electronics with us. That particular night, I heard the familiar dragging chains, and I told my companion to check the monitor. When he did, he screamed and shoved me awake. There was a hunched-over figure on the screen, dragging himself closer and closer to our beds. My companion and I scrambled to get out of bed, grab our stuff, and get as far away from that camera as possible. We spent the rest of the night in the bathroom, huddled together, holding our pillows like shields. First thing in the morning, after of course, not sleeping at all, we checked the camera, and lo and behold, it had stopped working. The battery was dead. We chalked it up to some electrical gremlin and moved on with our day. But at night, it happened again. Every night, the tall, skinny man would drag himself closer and closer to our bed, always stopping just short of actually entering the frame. And every morning afterward, the baby monitor was dead. This continued on for months. Then one day, a member of our church came over to visit, and he brought a camera with him. Sure enough, the second he stepped foot into the room, the camera freaked out and showed the same tall, skinny man dragging himself toward us. My companion and I had had enough. We packed up and left, staying at another member's house for the rest of our mission. It took us a long time to work up the courage to look at the footage again, but eventually we did. What we saw was horrifying. It wasn't the tall, skinny man we had expected. It was a little girl in a nightgown. Her head was grotesquely twisted at an unnatural angle, and her arms were contorted and stretched out like she'd been crucified. In our next story, Crying in the Old Chapel, I was serving as a missionary for the Church of Jesus Christ in a large city. We rented rooms in a house from a kindly, elderly woman. Our rooms were upstairs. She slept downstairs. One night, I was awakened in my room by sobbing coming from the floor below. I assumed that perhaps my companion and I should go check on our landlady. We were young and naive, and honestly, a little scared of the city and the people in it. I mean, it's a big city. You never know what you're gonna find lurking around the streets. So we grabbed our Bibles and slowly descended the stairs. As we reached the bottom of the staircase, we could hear our landlady crying and calling out for help. She was sobbing, "Help me, Lord. Help me, Jesus Christ. Help me." We called out to her, asking if she was all right. No response. We walked into the living room and found her sitting in her chair facing the TV, which was tuned to a gospel channel. She was watching something very intently, and she didn't seem to notice that we were there. For a moment, we stood awkwardly in the doorway, unsure what to do. Finally, I stepped forward and asked if she was okay. She responded, Yes, I'm fine. Just give me a moment." She turned to us, still dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. "I'm sorry, it's just a television program. It always gets me." And that's all she said. She never mentioned the incident again, nor did we ever ask her about it. We weren't sure how to respond. It was the weirdest thing we'd experienced in a long time though. If you enjoyed these terrifying true stories, be sure to stay tuned for more. And if you'd like to share your own story, hit the link in the description to submit to our channel. Thanks for watching. I'm your host. Join us next time for more scary stories from the internet.